How are you guys doing on this Tuesday? I hope you're good. My morning was hectic, but that's pretty much the norm around here, so to be expected. How are you, Heather? Thank you guys for jumping on with us again. Sorry I missed last week. Gosh, what did I have going on? Oh, I had a midwife meeting. Tired but good. Yep, that's about where I'm at. And I'm at that point in pregnancy right now where, like, I'm getting sleep, but it's like restless sleep. It's like, I don't know about you guys, I get like these super vivid, crazy dreams when I'm pregnant. It's really annoying. And it like makes it harder for me to sleep. Usually I sleep really, really well. I've never like had an issue with that, but you know, that happens when you get pregnant. Things that you're not used to come up and become issues, but oh well. Yeah, I know a lot of people that happens too. That's probably the worst thing, so I really can't complain. I mean, my sleep is still pretty good. And my kids are good sleepers, so they don't really, bug me too much at night, so that's good. So thank you guys for jumping on. Let me first go ahead and introduce myself for anybody that's new, and also if this is, I think, our fourth Periscope on this topic of our pregnant mama chats. I think 4, maybe 5. I don't know. I can't keep count. I don't even know how many weeks pregnant I am anymore. I can't keep count. But anyway, so if you've missed ones in the past, you can go to my Catch account, and it's catch.me/jessibridges. And every single one that we've done so far is there, so you can kind of catch up and see what we've been talking about. And we're kind of building on what we've talked about before and adding new things. And as I've said before, if you have any questions or if there's any issues or anything that you want me to address in future Periscopes, then you can certainly contact me and let me know. And I would love to try and address those things. So I am Jessie Bridges, and I am a wife to my husband, Ben. We've been married almost 12 years, and we have 3 kids, ages 5, 3, and 1, and then 1 on the way who's due in April. We have 2 boys, a girl, and then another girl on the way. And I blog at thisjessibridges.com, and if you go on that site, on the right-hand side column, there's a banner that says Periscope, and anything that we've talked about in the past, if you click on there, all the previous scopes are there, and there's any of resources or scripture, anything that we've talked about in each one of those scopes. If I reference something, I try and make sure that it's on there for you guys to go to and check later on. If you have questions or anything like that, you can email me, thisjessibridges@yahoo.com. And then I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. You can just look me up, Jessie Bridges. So, I think that's that for introduction. For anybody that's new to Periscope, because I know I have some people on here who, started using Periscope just to join in with these chats. If you ever want to share these scopes on Twitter, because, I'm so awesome, but not really. But, if you know someone who's pregnant, you feel like this could really be helpful for them as they're preparing for birth, you can share on, while we're live, you either swipe up or over, depending on what kind of phone you have, and then you can share it on Twitter, and then I think if you have any followers, you can share it with them too. But the idea is I want to help encourage as many women as possible as we're preparing for this time of, the end of our pregnancy and our childbirth and that thing. We're kind of walking through this thing at the same time. Or if you're looking at getting pregnant, you're trying to get pregnant, you know that that's going to be coming eventually, we're kind of in that same place together. So we want to be able to come together and chat on here, and feel free to leave comments or questions or anything as anything comes up. So, okay, so my plan is to have a kind of shorter scope today than I have done in the past. I have a lot going on today, but we'll see if that actually happens. So, basically, I wanted to kind of talk about kind of the things that can affect our birth and labor that may be unresolved. So any like emotional things that are going on, family situations, any just life situations in general, and we'll talk kind of a little bit about sin that needs to be addressed, but I want to leave that to be a separate scope because that's a whole big topic. So we'll probably do that one next week, but that will be a little bit of what we talk about today. And so the idea that I like to use when I talk about this is that women are like spaghetti and our minds are like spaghetti. So there's this book. Can you see it? Men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. And I'll be honest, I haven't read the whole thing, but it's by Bill and Pam Farrell, and I have read some of their other books, and I really like them. It's very, like, straightforward and humorous, and I just really like the concept. So, basically, what it means when it says women are like spaghetti is that everything in our mind kind of intersects with everything else in our mind. So all of our feelings and things that have gone on and stuff that's happened in the past and everything, like spaghetti, all the noodles, like, you know, touch each other and connect. Where men are like waffles, like they have boxes that are separate from each other. Like they can open a box and do whatever it is in that box and then close it and put it away. Like, my husband is always, I'll ask him something while he's at work. Hey, I need you to help me make this decision. And he'll go, no, I'm in my work box right now. Like, I'd have to close that and open this box over here. Where women, we can be thinking about 15 different things at one time and jump from thing to thing without any issue whatsoever. So that impacts our labor. And will you just hold on one second? My 3-year-old needs something, so hang on. Can you see my laundry pile on the floor? Yeah, because it's just crazy around here. And no, that wasn't my 3-year-old. It was my 5-year-old. He was supposed to be laying on the couch, but apparently that didn't work out for him. So anyways, okay. So if everything's connected and we have things that have happened previously to us, maybe it's a past birth experience that we went through. Maybe it's even just a birth experience that you've heard, that you've read about, that you saw on TV, that a friend has told you about, or something like that, that for some reason it's just stuck in your mind. It could be a life situation that's going on, something that's going on with your family, finances, a work situation, whatever it is. That is going to be in your mind, and it's going to touch, you know, that noodle is going to touch your childbirth noodle when you go into labor and you're getting ready to have a baby. And so, when I wrote down my notes, I kind of tried to divide things up into emotional issues that we need to deal with. And I kind of just say, this is the topic of when we need to deal with our junk. Like the stuff that's been unresolved, that we don't want to think about, that we don't want to deal with, or that we've kind of been dealing with, but it's still there and it's lingering, but it needs to be addressed and dealt with before the baby comes. So we have emotional things. So is there something that you're holding on to that you need to let go? Was there some sort of a conflict or an argument or something with someone? It could be your spouse, although I was dividing it up into emotional and relational, but I guess they kind of mesh, because then relationally I would say, is there something going on between you and your spouse that you haven't dealt with? Because if they're going to be there with you during labor, it could certainly impact that. Anytime that your relationships aren't right, there can be like a chasm there, and that can affect, you know, anything else that's going on, because you're thinking about things in the back of your mind and they have a foothold on what's going on right now. Even if it's a conversation you had 3 weeks ago, you know how we are. We can still remember what happened and what was said, and so it's important to deal with that. It could be, is there a situation in your life that's like completely beyond your control? Are you somewhere right now it could be anything. And you can't even fix it. Like, you don't have the power to fix it. It's completely outside and beyond your realm of control and your ability to make it right. Something that you just have to absolutely hand it over to God and trust him that he's in control and he'll take care of it. Is there something going on in your home or in your family? That would be something relational that you need to address, a conversation that you need to have, something that you need to put to rest and be at peace with, because it could come up. Something, a fear that you haven't thought, that you haven't really addressed, that you know you have, but you kind of don't want to think about it. It could be the fear of labor itself. And again, that's going to be a future scope because that's a whole big other topic. And unresolved conflict, we talked about that. And then unconfessed sin. That I feel like is one of the major ones, because having sin in your life that you're not confessing, that you're just pretending like, I'm fine and I can handle it on my own, and you're not repenting of it, it's going to come back and it's going to have an impact. So, when labor starts and we go into this process of birth, it's something that demands all of who we are. And any mom who's been through labor can totally attest to that. Yeah, it's totally physical, and it's really physical, and it's mostly physical for sure. But it also, you also have to use your mind, and it takes your emotions. Your emotions are all over the place. It's a spiritual thing. It's all those things. And so, to think that we have something, if there's something going on that we haven't dealt with, to think that we can go into something that requires all of our physical strength, our emotional strength, our mental strength, and our spiritual well-being, and that thing isn't going to have an impact at all, is most likely not the case. So, and I know this totally sounds like kind of vague, but I was trying to think of examples, and I was having a hard time. So you guys, I'm sure that you have something. I'm going to give you an example when I tell you, I'm going to give you like the short version of my middle child's birth story, and because his was super impacted by an issue that was going on that I wasn't dealing with. But, okay, so when we have these things that we're not dealing with, this junk that we're not getting rid of, that's unresolved, what does that mean physically? Because like we said, labor is obviously physical. So maybe it won't affect you physically, maybe, I don't know. But I would suggest not taking that chance, because I can say from personal experience that it can have a major impact, and you just don't want that. You want to be able to go in just free and clear and at peace, completely in trusting God, and with, everything off of your shoulders and laying the burden completely on him. And so something else that we'll get to next week when we talk about confessing sin and any kind of unrepentant sin or any kind of sin that we're struggling with that we really need to make right. We need to make ourselves right with God. Is there's this cycle, and I think it's naturalchristianchildbirth.org, I want to say, but I'm going to look it up and I'll put it on my blog so you guys can go and look at their site, because they have some really good stuff for Christians preparing for labor, particularly natural labor, but you can still use it depending on, whatever your plan is for your birth. But they talk about this cycle, and she says that if you have separation from God, which is if you have sin in your life that's unrepentant, then there's going to be a type of separation between you and God. We had the church that we used to go to. Our pastor used to call it, there was static on the line. Like if you were praying or you're having a phone call, it was staticky. There wasn't this clear line of communication that there would be if you had been, confessing your sin and coming clean. So if there's a separation, then that's going to lead to a lack of peace. Because, just think about your relationships in general. Like I know with my husband, if we're not on the same page and we've had an argument or any kind of disagreement, or there's just like that tension between us, and there's a lack of peace there between us in our relationship. So the same thing is true between, you and God. So if you have separation, then there's going to be a lack of peace, and that lack of peace, because you don't have peace with the Lord, is going to lead to unwanted pain or physical difficulties and that kind of thing. So, again, we'll talk more about that next week, and I will have all the information from the Natural Christian Childbirth. I really hope I'm getting that right, because this is from them. I don't want to say I made that up, because I did not, but I think it's very relevant. So, okay, so I'll tell you my story, and maybe it'll clear things up a little bit. But so I had Eli is right now he's my middle child. He's 3. And when we found out we were pregnant with him, we were living in Texas, and my husband was going to school and working, and it was getting to the point where school wasn't going to work out with work anymore because of scheduling, and his boss was super flexible, but only so flexible. And so we decided that it would be best for our family to move back to Las Vegas. That's where we live now. That's where we both grew up and where both of our families are. And we figured that way we had family in town, and it would give us a little bit of extra net to figure out what exactly we were going to do about him finishing school and going to work, and me having another baby, because we had Isaac at the time already. So when we got here, we didn't have a place to stay. We didn't have our own place to stay. So we stayed with my parents, but it was for an unspecified amount of time, because we honestly didn't know how long it would take for him to find a job and for us to get back on our feet again. And so we were kind of in this place of limbo, which is a really scary place to be when you have one child and one due very soon and no place to put them, because we were in a tiny space. My parents live in a 3-bedroom house, and so my parents were in their room, and then we had the other 2 rooms. Isaac was in one, and then Ben and I were in the other one, and the baby was going to be in that room with us, and it was very small and very tight. And he was working a minimum wage job at the time. That's all he could find, and continuing to look for work at the same time. And so as I'm preparing to have this baby and bring this baby into this family situation that, to me, I felt, I don't know if I felt bad that I was bringing him into such an unsure situation, that we didn't know what was going to happen or where we were going, how long we were going to be there. It was just very all over the place. We didn't have a plan. I'm a planner. I like to have a plan. And so whenever there's not a plan, it makes me nervous. But so I think that in general, just that whole situation in general, going into when labor began and giving birth to him, I can't say 100% that's why his birth ended up the way it is, but I can say with pretty certainty that it had an impact, because I really didn't deal with it. I said I was trusting God, and I was, reading my Bible, and I was studying, and I was doing all those things, but really deep down in my heart, I wasn't really giving it over to him. I really had not handed that to him. I had not laid it at the foot of the cross. I had not cast that burden onto him. I was carrying it, and I wasn't trusting him. And long story short, you can read his birth story on my blog if you want to. I don't know if I would recommend it. One of my things that I always tell expecting moms is, I don't read birth stories within 6 months of my due date, because it totally gets in my head and messes with me, and I don't want to have any expectations. I just want to go in and trust God and see what he has for me. But if you do want to read it, it's on there. But the long story short is, he was a 24-hour labor, which for your second, I figured my first one was only 12. So I thought, this is crazy. They say it's supposed to be shorter, but it wasn't. So just know that it's not always the case. And in the end, he wouldn't come out. I pushed for a very long time, and he didn't want to come out. So we ended up having to use the vacuum, which was awful. I felt so bad. He, by the grace of God, was completely protected through the whole thing. And he's, this wonderful, bright fantastic, exuberant child. And so everything turned out fine. But I feel like part of the reason that his birth was so difficult for me was because I don't know if I felt guilty or what it was for bringing him into a situation that I felt so unsure about. So, that's my story of why I feel like if there's something going on, if there's something, and I don't even know that it has to be that major, it can just be something that you're just not wanting to deal with, that you should just go ahead and deal with it, as hard as it may be to look it in the face and say, I'm just going to resolve this now, and I don't want it to come back and impact my labor. So I wrote this down. Let me read it since I don't remember exactly what I was saying. But so something that's unresolved, especially sin, can lead to a tension and an anxiety and a lack of peace, not only during your birth, but in the months, weeks, and days leading up to it. And so as I'm preparing for labor, I want my body to be at peace as well. I don't want to be tense and worried and anxious, and because those emotions affect us physically just as well. And so one of the things I struggle with my kids is they make me angry sometimes. That happens when you have young kids, and I can feel the tension physically when I get angry with them. And so that's one of the things that this go around that I'm really working on between me and God, is just being able to be gentle and kind when I respond to them, rather than being angry and upset, like that's my go-to emotion, because I know it's having an impact on me physically, and it's probably having an impact on the baby, like the way that the baby is sitting in my womb, and the emotions and the hormones and things that go to the baby. Because we know, like, if you're happy and you have oxytocin flowing, it can go through the placenta and the baby feels it too. And so, I want to be like in a good place emotionally, because I want the baby to be not stressed out. Not that the baby knows really like stress or how to be stressed out or whatever, but you know that it has an impact. And I want my body to be relaxed and ready, because the more tense you are and the more anxious you are, the more you're fighting the natural process of labor. And again, it's going to have an impact. So real quick, I'll wrap it up with this. How do we overcome this while we're preparing for birth? So any of these things that we've talked about that we're holding on to, this stuff that we're not letting go of, these things that need to be resolved, how do we overcome them? So I just made a list. So you need to resolve any conflicts that you have. And I don't know what that looks like. You're going to have to look around and figure out what's going on, what has happened that you're holding on to, anything like that, and you need to resolve it. You need to confess any sin that you haven't confessed. And that's really hard, to look it in the face and say, this is something I'm struggling with and I'm dealing with, and I'm not dealing with it. This is just something that's going on and I don't want to deal with it. But Lord, I need you to take this from me and to change my heart. And I can't do it on my own. And then anything else, you need to just give it to God, and you need to lay it at the cross, and you need to trust in His goodness and in His faithfulness. Like I talked about before, there could be something that you just absolutely have no control over and you can't change. There's a lot of things like that. That was my story with Eli. I had no idea, and this is the funny part. He was born on November 17th, and December 31st, so a month and a half later, my husband had a job making the exact amount of money that we needed in order to get the lowest cost apartment that we needed with all of our bills to get out on our own. So it was I want to say 40 days, maybe, not even, later, that God completely provided 100% exactly what we needed. I had no idea that was coming, and even if we had to stay there 6 months longer, it would have been fine. He still was providing for us, but you just don't know because you don't have control of it, and there's no reason to worry about the things that you can't control. So you just need to let it go and give it up and trust in him and stop being afraid. I know it's so easy to do, right? But again, we'll talk about that one in a future scope. But I mean, isn't that what he says constantly over and over in scripture? Fear not, fear not, fear not. So we just need to stop being afraid. So I will leave you with a couple of scripture verses to kind of maybe you can meditate on or look over. 1 Peter 5:7. I think most of us probably know this one. We may have memorized it in Sunday school, but cast your anxieties on him because he cares for you. So anything that's going on that you're dealing with, just give it to him. He cares for you. He loves you. He created you, and you are his child. So if there's something going on, give it to him and let him take it. There's no reason for you to hold on to it because it's just going to make things unpleasant for you. And then Psalm 55:22 was very similar to that one that we just read. Cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. So again, just cast it on him. And then Psalm 56, the entire psalm is really good. In my Bible, it's titled, In God I Trust. And so I feel like this whole thing comes down to just trusting in God and letting go of this stuff that you just need to get rid of because it's not something that you need to carry. But verse 3 says, When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. So yeah, that's basically it. What it comes down to is just recognizing what those things are that you need to deal with, and then figuring out the steps that you need to take between now and when that baby is going to come to resolve anything, to repent anything, to just lay anything down that you don't want to carry with you into childbirth and labor and the birth of your baby. You don't want things hindering you. You don't. You want to be free and at peace and completely open between you and God, that relationship. You just want it to be close and peaceful, and you want his strength and his guidance, and you want to be able to hear him clearly through the whole thing. So again, I will put all of the resources that I talked about, the couple books, the website, and then the scripture verses up on my blog. And other than that, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. And I will see you here next week, 2:30 on Tuesday. And if you have anyone that you think could benefit from this, then I just urge you to share it with them, because I don't want to keep it to us. I want us to be able to talk together as we go through this, and I want to know what kind of things you guys are dealing with as you're preparing for labor on your side of the screen. So again, I'm praying for you all, and I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Thanks for coming on.